Just kind of looking back last year at this time, tell me what you were doing.
Well, let's see. What are we at date-wise? Today's the 10th. I think today's literally the day that we found out that we were probably not having a season. And I remember walking out to the practice field and receiving a note that said that there wasn't going to be Mountain West Conference play and that possibly we were going to see if we could play the Academy games. So we're in a better place right now.
Yeah, and we were talking to Brad in Lakota earlier, and he said just the way things panned out with the turnbacks, guys getting playing time, game experience that necessarily wouldn't have it had it been a regular year. So coming back to practice this year, they said things are running a little more smoothly with just those guys having that experience. Is that how you see it and how you hope to benefit the team?
Well, I think as we move forward into August, we want that to be the case. I mean, right now we're really in an onslaught in terms of the installations that we're doing. And that's for guys that didn't play last year, trying to get them, just really reattached, whether it's drills, whether it's certain communication that has to occur, and then a good number of these guys that have really still never played college football. We got a bunch of spots where that's the case. So you're just trying to develop, and it does take time. Does that take 4 months? Does that take 8 months? Or can we do that in a few weeks? That's the pursuit.
Coach, is it training right now? Is it, like you said, installation? What do you mean by that? Is it more of installation of plays? Is it getting the basics down? What are we looking at right now?
Yeah, probably both. I think, so much of what you do just offensively, defensively with your special teams is the teaching of your system. So you said the teaching of plays, that's pretty close.
For you, vaccination rates, what are we looking at for the team right now?
I can't give you an exact number today. I think we're in a pretty good place, and I think here real soon it will get better. Now, I can't tell you it's going to get drastically better because, like I said, I think we're in a pretty good place.
Perfect. And for you, Coach, you said a lot of holes to fill, mainly on the offensive line, so a two-parter for you. First, when you look at Ferguson and Laufenberg going to an NFL team, is that surprising to you to see guys that were on this roster last year, didn't get a ton of reps, but still able to find an NFL home?
Well, those guys, they had prior history too. So, last year, you're right, they played in only 6 games, but prior to that, they had a bunch of snaps as sophomores and juniors. So I do think, they were a good ways along in their development, and they'll continue even more so just because I think their bodies will keep changing. They were both guys that were direct entry into the academy, and because of it, I mean, it'd be kind of interesting to see maybe here in a couple of years where they are too.
For your offensive line, you have to replace those guys. You said they were the main guys on that offensive line. How is that progression going for you guys?
Well, we're 3 days along, but we are fortunate. We also had, the benefit of spring practices too. And, I mean, we guys that love to work, have tremendous guidance and leadership in Coach Lobo. And I think more than anything else is the consumption with details. Good players want to know those little things that can keep making them a little better. Good coaches, good people. That's the way we live life too.
Gotta love it. I agree with you on that one. Interesting spot for you. You've never had to deal with this before with COVID and the pandemic, and then having a bunch of turnbacks. Is that an interesting part for you to have guys that have had this experience, technically fifth-year seniors, but also guys who did get a bunch of experience last year? Is that unique for you?
Well, we don't have a bunch. We have 3 starters back on offense and 3 starters back on defense. And then when you bring, a few of these guys that played in 2019, I mean, really there were probably about 6 or 7, that were able to play 20-plus snaps during 2019, some of them 200-plus snaps. And we just you're just trying to get some things to work together. And And then we need to practice and we need to play. I mean, we have to gain experience, and the only way you do that is by your preparation on the field, and then certainly getting involved in games. You know, as you move through September, you move through October, and then later in the year, hopefully there's some pluses because of it too.
Final question for you is this: you're a football guy. You love being out there. You love coaching. Has the last year made you appreciate what you do for a living more?
Yeah, I absolutely love what I do. I'll tell you this. I mean, every single day I've been here, as you're coming through the north gate, and there have been mornings where you had to get in even earlier, where you came in through the south gate. So I'm driving down Stadium Boulevard, and in most places it's 45. I can tell you I've never gone less than 45 coming up that north gate or down Stadium Boulevard.
Thanks, Coach.
Can you kind of, what's the anticipation of Brad Roberts' role? Like, do you think he's going to play fullback, tailback? Are those positions really interchangeable in a lot of ways?
They're really two different, as far as the teaching of assignments, they're two completely different positions. Certainly there's carryover in the fundamentals, you know, how you carry a ball, how you read certain blocks, just because that's a part of it for a ball carrier. Some of the pass protection definitely does. I mean, I think he certainly could. You know, the good part is his freshman year he played tailback. Last year he was primarily, you know, with his hand down behind the quarterback, but he also played a little bit of tailback too.
And in terms of the way that position has evolved, I mean, I wasn't around to see Jared too play that, so I don't know exactly what kind of style he brought. But I mostly saw the Shane Daverns, DJ Johnsons. But then when Jacoby went in there, it brought a different element in terms of speed. Do you think a guy like him mixes both of those? And what do you prefer out of that spot?
Yeah. I mean, you bring up a great point. I mean, I'll say this, and it's really, coaching is finding guys that are the best football players, or at least you identify have the potential to be really good football players. And I think you have to mold your systems accordingly. And so if you identify a guy that's a really, really good football player that's 195 pounds and he ends up playing somewhat of a position, you got to craft that position accordingly. Or you find a guy that's 235, 240 pounds, it does change in terms of what you're going to ask that guy to do.
And does that help you if you have a Omar Fatah or someone like that backing him up? It's a very different look, but just based on personnel.
So true, and so a little bit of it. Once you get into the season, there you may craft a game plan a little bit differently. Even in our mind right now, you're thinking, hey, this might be a little more this guy's role. So when there's certain reps that occur in practice, let's make sure he's involved in those. And for somebody else, it may be, as a ball carrier. I will say this. You have to be tough physically and mentally. You have to be one heck of a player when you don't have the ball. I think that's always the ultimate measure of any football player. I think especially a ball carrier and a receiver too. What are your contributions that you love to make as a competitor when you aren't touching the ball? And then you got to have some running skill. And, the types of runs may vary a little bit from year to year depending on who that is or who, if it's two or three of them, that are getting the lion's share of those carries.
And with Lakota, he came in here too, obviously. And, his history, he's had a lot of injuries. Is there anything, do you think a year off maybe will help that? And is there anything else you can do with a guy like that
I'll say no one. I mean, no one since I've been here has worked harder than Lakota. The extra time that he puts in the weight room on his own, and it's really kind of a good problem to have. You just, making sure that there's full body balance when it comes to movement, flexibility. He goes hard after the power part of it, and he loves to play. And so, and yet more than anything else, it's been, I think, one of the most rewarding things, truly, since I've been in coaching, is just seeing the growth that he's made as a young man, too. I mean, he has a lot of leadership aptitude, and I think for himself, he's starting to discover more and more of that as time passes, too.
And do NFL scouts ever talk to you at this point in the season? And is he one they're asking about?
He is, yes, sir.
What kind of feedback are you giving on him?
Just how much we look forward to this fall, with him. And there have been stretches where there's been really, really good productivity. And like I said a little bit earlier, nobody's been more dedicated than he has.
And with having Navy so early in the season, will that kind of impact the practice schedule in August and give you an opportunity to kind of build up for that?
There are some things where maybe that comes into play. I think so much of what we're doing, I think certainly initially here in these first 2 weeks is team installation. But a part of that installation are things that we may do in that particular game. But we're heavy into installation right now. We'll take that third week and we'll do some initial opponent prep. That includes Navy. It also includes Utah State. They have a new staff. In Florida Atlantic a little bit too, just because we've played them. We haven't played them since 2017. So I think that's part of holistically what you get done in August.